This was a prehistoric giant, a creature of strength, mystery, and silence. It roamed the earth long before cities, long before names, but what was it really, and why did it disappear? Today, join me as we travel back to an untouched world to discover the secrets of the woolly mammoth. The mammoth wasn't born in darkness. It took its first breath under a sunlit sky, in open grass, with warm wind and the sound of hooves nearby. It was never alone. Mammoths moved as families, tightly knit, quiet, strong. They didn't fight to lead. They walked to protect. This land never stood still. Wind pulled at trees, dirt, and bone. But the mammoth's fur held firm, thick, tangled, weathered by time. Their tusks weren't just tools. They were memory. Etched with years, curved by time, passed from one life to the next. They didn't chase. They searched. Trunks sweeping low, they felt the land for stalks, roots, and hidden softness buried beneath age and dust. In the heat, they sought silence. Deep in groves of trees older than language, they found rest and listened. Sometimes, one walked alone. Not lost. Not exiled. Just following a rhythm older than sound. Water was memory. Every herd, every path, every season began with where the rivers once ran, or still did. The storm didn't scare them. It reminded them that even giants must bow when the sky grows loud. They woke with the land. When light touched the grass, they moved. Every step part of a map drawn across the bones of time. Dry seasons didn't announce themselves. They crept in, stole the rivers, and left only heat. The mammoths didn't wait, they walked. Even when the earth cracked, some trees remained. Mammoths remembered them, for shade, for bark, for the memory of rain. No drums. No roars. Just wait. 1,000 quiet steps over dying grass, heading toward water only memory could find. There was no feast. Just roots, dry bark, hard weeds. But the mammoth's hunger didn't complain, it adapted. The sun burned the land. The water vanished. But the mammoths moved forward, because forward was the only way left. The ground no longer welcomed them. It tilted, cracked, lifted. But the mammoths didn't stop, they climbed. They walked over the bones of others. Hooves had failed here. Claws had slipped. But the mammoth remembered how to shift its weight. Then came the red. A plain where no green grew. But the sky was endless, and so was their will. Their tusks burned in the sun. Their shadows shortened. And still the mammoths marched, quiet as stone. This land was not made for walking. It was carved one step at a time. And now the mammoths carved it again. As the dust faded behind them, the ground began to breathe. Wet. Soft. Heavy with scent and stillness, the mammoth slowed. This was not a place to charge. This was a place to feel. To remember the soft earth under their ancestors' feet, and the ghosts hidden beneath water. In the marsh, vision lies. The world folds itself into shadow and cloud. But the mammoth never needed eyes to lead. It had weight. It had memory. It had silence, and that was enough. These trees were older than weather. Older than fire. And the mammoths, though massive, moved among them like guests, their trunks brushed against bark shaped by centuries. Their steps cracked nothing. This was a meeting of giants. There was no grass here. No open wind. But there were roots. Bark. Fallen fruit and damp leaves, and for the mammoths, this was enough. Because life didn't have to be bright, it only had to be there. When night fell, the forest didn't sleep. It whispered. Branches creaked. Air hung thick, and the mammoths stood still. Watching. Waiting. Listening, not because they were afraid, but because something older than fear had taught them, stillness is survival. At first, it was only frost. A whisper along the grass. Then snow clung to their fur, their breath thickened, and the wind stopped carrying scent. This was no longer a path, it was a threshold. Snow doesn't echo. It swallows. Every footstep vanished beneath white silence. Even their calls grew softer, as if the world asked them to whisper. Sometimes the storm moved before they did. Clouds rolled low. The air itself thickened. And still, they pressed forward, trusting that memory knew the way better than sight. Their fur froze. Their ears turned stiff. But beneath skin and bone, heat stayed alive, built deep into the mammoth's heart, carried by blood older than the ice itself. Sometimes, the herd vanished. Lost in space too wide, too cold. A lone mammoth stood on a ridge, looking out. Nothing behind. Nothing ahead, just wind and the will to keep moving. It came in silence, a wet cry against the snow. The herd didn't panic. They circled. They waited. They watched, and when the calf stood, trembling, blind, they moved around it like the world itself had turned to shield one breath. The mammoth didn't need armor. It had the herd. And when danger came, they didn't run. They faced outward, stood wide, and waited. They came at dusk. Not alone. Not loud. Just eyes in the snow, moving low, moving fast. The mammoths didn't chase. They stood. Because some creatures survive by running. But not them. The predator leapt, just one. That was all it took. One lunge. One scream, and then the tusks came down. Not with rage. Not with hate. With precision. With memory. The snow returned. The silence returned. But the calf, now upright, now alert, remembered not the shape of the enemy, but the shape of protection. The threat passed, but the cold remained. There was no song of victory. Just the hush of snow and the breath of those who stayed. The sun no longer warmed. It only marked time. Day after day, the herd walked. Through snow so deep, they could no longer feel the land below. Where once there was grass, now there was silence. The land that once fed thousands gave nothing. And the mammoths lowered their heads, not in defeat, but in search. The oldest knew. They felt it in their bones. The land was changing faster than memory could catch it. And some lay down, not from weakness, but from knowing. They didn't understand decline. They only understood forward. So they walked, because the horizon still existed and the sky still allowed it. The snow still fell. But it no longer stayed. The rivers returned in the wrong places. And the mammoths began to turn without knowing why. Beneath their feet, the frozen earth cracked. What was once solid turned to rot. And every step left behind a deeper print. There was no more rhythm. Storms came when they shouldn't. Rain fell on frost. The calendar that nature had kept for 1,000,000 years broke. The herd followed old paths. But the paths led to silence. What was once a riverbed was now a swamp. And food no longer grew where memory said it would. Winter came late. Then not at all. The cold that once kept predators away, that preserved the land, that gave the mammoth its name, was gone. No fire fell. No sky opened. The world didn't end, the mammoth just wasn't there anymore. One morning, a hill that had always moved stayed still. Footprints filled with water. Bones settled into roots, the shape of the mammoth never left, it only changed. Where mammoths once thundered, moss now grows. The trees remember. But they speak in silence. The mammoth never truly vanished. It lives in the frost. In bone. In echo. In the breath of cold wind through the trees. They were not myths. Not monsters, they were real, they walked, and the earth remembers.